And we are live with this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. And Andrew, it has been just about a couple of weeks since NBA free agency has started. Have been a couple of big-time moves around the world of the NBA. Still awaiting on the decision of two big key players as well. One free agent, one a player that might be getting traded. We'll have to see how that turns out the next couple of weeks, but it has been a very hectic start to free agency. It really all went down on night number one of that free agency day. Since then, it has been a little bit quiet, but as I said, we're waiting to decide about the futures of James Harden and Damian Lillard. So we'll have to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, no, we like we did in our predictions show, we had a bunch of guys we thought they were going, and I think we only got one or two of them right, so that's really good for us.
Mushing hour continues.
No, but it's hard to predict the NBA free agency because it's so predictable. I mean, obviously, some moves are easier than others. Like for example, we both had Jeremy Grant remaining as a Portland Trailblazers, and I think a lot of these picks come down to these guys. It's just very hard to predict because, or not hard to predict because of the lack of money in the NBA right now.
Correct.
The average team is $38 to $50 million over the salary cap, so
And we
there's
talked
really
about
no.
that.
Yeah, there's really no room. But that's when it was actually kind of shocking to see some of these guys actually get paid to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's why when we broke it down, we saw a couple of these guys staying with their teams, but we try to maybe predict some movement happening where it would kind of shake up the NBA. There was a couple that kind of did, but like I said, I think Harden and Lillard will make the most significant impact. It's as to shaking up the league as it is. Um, but being that as it may, we're kind of seeing some similarity from the teams and where they're going back. Guys going back to their original teams from last year, such as we mentioned Jeremy Grant. Kyrie Irving also is going back to the Dallas Mavericks. He got a big time deal with them, about $120 million for 3 years. Grant got 5 years for 160. Draymond Green honestly surprised me going back to Golden State with a 4-year contract for 100 mil.
It could have fooled me.
Yeah, I really thought that his time was over considering there's a new regime in Golden State, but they're still in championship window right now, so they might as well bring the core back, and you now have Chris Paul, so I guess
And they got rid of Jordan Poole.
And they did get rid of Jordan Poole, so maybe that enticed Draymond to go back. Who knows? A move that really surprised me was Kyle Kuzma going back to the Wizards. I did not see that at all happening. I figured he was done in Washington.
Yeah, I agree with you too. I think I had him going to Detroit, or
You did.
you had him going to Detroit, and I had him
No,
going to
I
Charlotte.
did. Yep.
And again, the reason why this guy stayed is because no one can afford to pay anyone.
And he got a good contract too.
Yeah, he got 4 years over $90 million, about $22.5 million per year. And with incentives, that could be as high as $102 million. So, hey, he's 28 years old or is about to be 28 years old. So, to him, that's going to be probably his last big payday.
Yep.
And he cashed in on it.
Yeah, and he definitely, he brings a lot for the Wizards who are trying to rebuild right now. It'll be really him and Jordan Poole that will lead that rebuild for Washington next season. So, only time can tell what's going to do for them. They're going to have to draft really well the next couple of years. They do have some draft picks to help with that as well. Other moves that went down free agency, Chris Middleton signing back with the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's a big signing for Milwaukee. They do not lose Middleton. Hopefully he can bounce back. He's starting to get a little bit healthier now from that injury he sustained just about over a year ago. So good to see him get a nice contract. He gets 3 years, around over $93 million in total. Another move was the Brooklyn Nets. They brought back Cam Johnson on the RFA, so they were able to match the offer that he got. I don't remember. Correct me if I'm wrong, Johnson. I don't remember the exact team that gave him that original offer that the Nets had to match it. Was it the Timberwolves?
Like the original one? I think it was a. Oh boy, that's a good question. I don't know what team exactly offered him, but I think it was the. It wasn't the Rockets. Why do I want to assume it's the Rockets?
I feel like you're not. Was it? Oh, I think it was Detroit.
It was Detroit.
Yes, it was Detroit. So the Pistons. Yeah, that's another team that's trying to rebuild, and a guy like Cam Johnson would help them. But the Nets were able to match that offer, and they said they would do that even if it went over $100 million. just stays a little bit under that at 94.5 in total. So Cam Johnson's going back to Brooklyn with Mikal Bridges and all of them.
This is a horrendous contract, by the way.
I don't like it either. I'm not the biggest fan of Cam Johnson. But then again,
Because people
I
again,
don't
I
like the
realized
Nets
he had a
either.
couple.
So
He had a he had like 2 good weeks. He is a Jeremy Lin type player. What I mean by that, he is very hot and very cold, and you gave him high
hey,
level role player money.
Jeremy Lin got a big deal too after that season with the Knicks.
Yeah, the way I look at it, do you think Cam Johnson is worth more than Kyle Kuzma?
No, I take Kyle Kuzma for him.
I would take Kyle Kuzma any day of the week before Cam
He got more
Johnson.
money than
Great
Chris
player.
Middleton.
Yeah, I know. He got more than Chris Middleton too, but Chris Middleton, I get it. He's a little bit older, understandable, but I don't know about this. It's to me, this is a desperation move by the Nets. Again, they don't own their future for the next decade, so they need to retain any kind of anyone that can really fill a seat. So for the
Right.
15 fans that are going to come see Cam
For
Johnson in
15.
Brooklyn, or the discounted tickets, like they give them out like candy. You mean you get a laugh all you want? By I guarantee by next February you'll be able to get Nets tickets for $4.
I did go to a lot of Islander games when they were at the Barclays Center for under $10, so
Yeah, so you could see it when
I
the
can't
off
really
team in
fight
New
you on
York,
that.
when the B team in New York isn't good, it's struggle city. I mean, even like the New York Mets are a legitimate New York franchise. They've been a staple in the city for over 5 or 6 decades at this point. They have a talented, I'm sorry, not talented. They have a passionate and large fan base, and you could even get their tickets for $5, $6 for some of their games. So
Um,
for a team like the Nets, an NBA game, sure, when Golden State comes to town, it's gonna be expensive. When the Knicks play there 2 times a year, it's gonna be expensive. But when Detroit comes, the Indiana Pacers, Utah Jazz, $4.
you talk about the Mets. We talked about them in our last show here on All Gas No Breaks about the whole first half of the season, how the second half's going to go. And next week we'll be talking about the trade deadline in the MLB, and
Yes,
the
we will.
Mets will be a team to watch that in those next 2 weeks
They
with
will
the
be
trade deadline
sellers.
coming up. It looks like they're going to be selling. Hell, my Yankees might be selling too. That's another discussion for next week. Don't want to get too off topic, but we did have a little bit of movement also in this free agency, and one team in particular made that type of movement, and that was the Houston Rockets. Andrew signing two big players to their team. One, I have a lot of question marks about him. The other one,
I have
I
even more
like the
question marks.
I like the player, but not the contract. The guy I'm talking about with that is Fred VanVleet.
So I've said this a couple of times. I think I had Fred Van Vliet going somewhere else, not to Houston. I
So
think I had him going to San Antonio.
we both had him going to San Antonio.
Right.
We
And
were
then I realized
we were
he
in
doesn't
the
play
right state.
defense.
Well, yeah,
And then Popovich would be like, wait, this man doesn't play defense?
yeah.
But no, like I get it why Houston did it. It looks like they're not getting James Harden.
They're
Like
not gonna get James
that
Harden.
ship has sailed. Ime Udoka doesn't want to deal with him. He doesn't want to deal with his ego. So okay, I get it. You get dollar store James Harden. Is that a fair way to describe him? Bargain bin James Harden.
Uh, he's not as good as a playmaker as James Harden,
Great
but
value James Harden.
I guess I don't know what's the
Like
best.
knockoff DVD James Harden.
I don't know what's the best way to describe. I mean, I like Van Vliet for scoring. Like he can shoot when he needs to be, but he gets a big contract with the Rockets. He got 3 years, around over $128 million in total for this contract. He got paid a lot from Houston.
You know what I really hate? I really hate to say this, and this is the comparison I'm going to draw to them. And don't get me wrong, the first guy I'm going to mention was a way better than Fred VanVleet, and I mean way better, not even close. I think this is going to be like another Kemba Walker situation. Fred VanVleet in a
Maybe.
couple of years, he's 29. He's 29 right now, so he'll be 30 by the time halfway through the season starts. He'll be 31, 32 towards the end of his contract, and his I don't think his knees are going to hold up. Because you got to remember, Kemba Walker, when he got signed by Boston that previous season,
Yep.
completely fine. Even that first season, Boston, completely fine. He was an all star, played in almost every single game. I know it was a shortened COVID year, so I think he missed like 10 or 11 games. And then that's when the knee problem started. problem started as soon as he turned 30 years old.
Right.
And the reason why Kemba Walker deteriorated so fast, and people don't really talk about this, because he was a smaller guard. He was a shoot first guard who was, I would say, a league average shooter at best. I mean, most of the times he was shooting around 43%, but again, nobody on Charlotte, so there's no one we could really pass the ball to. Good 3 point shooter, but he relied on his quickness and his, I guess I don't want to say limited athleticism, but his ability to kind of stop on a dime and take defenders off their game and just kind of blow past them and maybe pass out to the big man driving inside, maybe get a tough layup. That's Fred VanVleet's game. He is a short, undersized guard who doesn't really play defense. He can shoot, but he can't really finish well. And if he doesn't really, if his knees don't hold up, this is gonna be a really bad contract.
Right. Uh, I don't know. I'm very indifferent about the whole deal as it is. I like the player. I don't like the money that went towards the player. And I feel like the Rockets are going to be a scenario where you're maybe year two of this contract and you're looking at it and saying, this might have been a mistake, and we're probably going to look into maybe buying him out or trading him. So I don't know. Hopefully, maybe that works. Maybe it works out for Van Vliet and for Houston. Maybe we're maybe at the end of the day, it all pans out for them, and maybe they make some noise in the postseason because this is still a very young team. So you're looking for a guy like Van Vliet who has won a championship to bring that type of a spark to a team that's trying to get over the hump. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens to Fred VanVleet. I mean, I don't like the contract. Another contract I guess we don't like is do you like Jeremy Grant's contract?
No, I
I
don't.
don't like it at all
And
either.
and I
I think he's heavily overpaid.
and I like Jeremy Grant coming out of Syracuse, but he gets a $160 million for 5 years. I mean, Portland is such a
I
weird
get why they
team,
did it.
man.
I get why they did it. They
We're
need to keep
getting,
fans excited.
yeah,
Jeremy Grant is a good player.
he
He's a
is.
decent player. He scores around. He's a 20 and 5 type guy. He's
I
good
mean,
finishing inside.
you
He's
look
got
at it,
a decent free ball. Pretty good free ball in the last couple of
yeah.
years. But it's kind of
Well,
suspect.
you mentioned it. They're going to be relying on him. Simmons or Simons. I always forget how you pronounce it.
Anthony Simons.
Anthony Simons. They're going to be relying on him and
And we don't know if
Simons,
Scoop Henderson's going to be okay.
and hopefully now Scoot Henderson. I think he got injured during the summer league. Those are going to be your three guys for the next couple of years because Damian Lillard is going to probably get traded at some point. It's only inevitable when it goes down. I just don't know when it happens.
Don't remember. Wait, you have to remember. They also have Shadon Sharp, he's shown flashes.
He's shown flashes here and there.
So he's not bad. They have Yusuf Nurkic. If he can stay healthy, he's actually pretty good. And they have New York Knicks legend Kevin Knox, who maybe will break out in his 6th year in the league.
There's no way you brought up Kevin Knox.
Listen. For Portland last year,
you lost me
8
there.
points per game.
You lost me there.
8 points per game, Nick. That's a lot.
Sure. Portland is in a scenario where you're rebuilding. These are going to be your new guys, the face of the franchises, and I don't know. It just doesn't smell like a team. It smells like a team that maybe makes the bubble at best. Maybe sneaks in as a late playoff team. They're not going to go anywhere further than this. They don't have a superstar in this team.
No, the West is very weird though, where I think and the 10 seed is kind of up for grabs.
Right, and I guess it really depends on also what Portland could get back in a Damian Lillard package because that could also help them. I don't know. I just feel like they're one of the weirdest teams in the NBA because you can't tell if they're rebuilding and trying to build for the future or rebuilding to the point where they still think they compete right now.
I think you hit the nail right in the head here. And a team that's also desperately trying to compete, that is the Dallas Mavericks. They just signed Kyrie Irving, 40
Yep.
mil per year over the next 3 years. So that's $120 million total. To the Dallas Mavericks, Kyrie Irving, he's center of controversy to say the least. But when he is on the floor, he is a top 5 player in the NBA.
You had to keep him. That was the moral of the story. They had no choice because You
And I
lose
don't think
Kyrie,
this was not Kyrie's first destination. He wanted to be a Laker.
right? And I think at the end of the end of the day, he wasn't going to get paid that money from the Lakers because they don't have the money. We highlighted that a couple weeks ago. So Dallas was able to give him the contract that he would want, and they're able to keep their star Luka happy, which is what they need to do at the end of the day.
So I will say
Um,
one thing about Kyrie. He played 60 games last year, which was the most games he's played since the 2018-2019 season. 60 games isn't what you want, but if you can figure, you can at least, if you could pencil him in for 60 games, and if he can give you what he did last year, 27, 5, and 5 on 50%, almost flirting with 50, 40, 90. That's something great. I know he doesn't play defense, and he doesn't really rely. He's not a smaller guard. He is I don't want to say undersized point guard, but I would say an average size point guard. So he doesn't really rely on that athleticism. His game is going to age really well. But there's been the injury bug in the past early in his career, and obviously the whole nonsense with him sitting out games due to COVID and the restrictions in New York City. Put that behind him. If he can put the off-court shenanigans in the rearview mirror, I think this future with Luka and this tandem could work out.
yeah, I think only time's going to tell. I mean, you have to hope that everything goes right. Dallas is trying to keep Luka happy because if they don't, who knows what happens with him the next couple of years. You don't want to, lose him to free agency or him requesting a trade. So you have to do stuff like this to keep him happy and keep your star player there. They also made another move, getting Grant Williams from the Boston Celtics, which involved a sign and trade, which turned into a 3-team deal. Grant Williams gets 4 years, 53 mil from the Mavericks. Celtics in that swap and sign and trade got 2 future second round picks from the Dallas Mavericks. And the San Antonio Spurs would also get involved in this deal, and they would get Reggie Bullock from the Mavericks, also with the swap right in 2030 from Dallas. So Dallas also gets Grant Williams to help what they could use on defense. So you see that in the offseason, other than Kyrie, and you saw it in the draft too. They are trying to address that defense because last year it was really bad for them. And doing this, getting Derek Lively in the NBA draft is kind of helping them get into the right direction and trying to fix the defense from last season.
So one thing I do want to say, and I think it went under the radar because it was a trade as well. I know you mentioned Grant Williams was required via trade, but Rashawn Holmes also required via trade. I actually kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
right. Yeah, for Sean Holmes,
He
forgot
didn't
about
really
him.
play in Sacramento this year because they had Demontis Sabonis there in front of him. So he didn't really play at all. But the last couple of years when he played, he was like a 12-8 kind of guy, a 14-8 kind of guy. So he could play. And the Mavericks don't really have anyone at center in front of him. I highly doubt they're going to start JaVale McGee over him.
No, they're getting rid of JaVale McGee.
So there
They're
you
trying to get
go.
rid of
So
him. Yeah.
you're going to have Rashawn Holmes and Derek Lively getting up his backup minutes. So
Yep.
you finally have a player that I think can really fit in well. Because Rashawn Holmes, I know he's not this defensive, savant or anything like that, but you just had Christian Wood there who plays no defense whatsoever. So if you can at least get a guy
And
like
he's still
Rashawn
a free
Holmes who wants
agent.
to revitalize his NBA career, he's only 29 years old. He still has a couple of good years ahead of him in his prime. And a guy who desperately wants to be playing for a contract and wants to be in the NBA, hey, if you get him to buy into the system, this could work out really well for the Dallas. So I do like this pick or this pickup, and it went really under the radar.
Yeah, I think that was during the draft too, which is why I think it went under the radar as well. Dallas was able to make that move, and then they got Derek Lively in the draft as well. So they're trying to address that center need. And you said it, Christian Wood was just not a good defensive center in the NBA. He's more about scoring. So Dallas is trying to fix that overall by doing this, and I think they did a great job so far. I mean, I don't know what else they really do in this NBA offseason. It looks like they're probably going to stand pat and keep with what they have. Maybe sign a low tier minimum wage, minimum contract at the end of the day. But Dallas makes the low tier moves, and that's fine. I think that will keep Luka happy. It will keep them in contention for a playoff berth next season, and that's what you want because you missed the playoffs last season, and they got to fix it this year. Jason Kidd could be on the hot seat.
I think he should have been fired this season, but that's neither here nor there or my decision. So
right. So I think it's all or in right now for Dallas and trying to get back into the postseason, and doing stuff like this could potentially help you.
Yeah, and I guess only time will tell about how that's actually going to turn out.
Yeah. I forgot to mention during the Rockets talk. We forgot to mention Dylan Brooks. How do we feel about that contract?
I was just about to get into Dylan Brooks.
Okay.
So here's my problem, and I think Coach K said it best when, if you remember in the NCAA tournament a couple years ago when Dylan Brooks was at Oregon and they played Duke, at the end of that game when Oregon was only up, they were up by like 10 or 11 points with like 15 seconds left, and they were going to get a shot clock violation. So Brooks took the shot, the uncontested 3-pointer, and just kind of did some box score window dressing.
Hmm.
And Coach K after the game said, "Hey, you're better than that. You don't need to do that. You're a good player." And he kind of like resonated for him just a little bit. So he kind of knew he was being a jerk because it's not like Coach K exploded on anything. He just kind of said it to him in the handshake line, whatever. So I think if that version of Dylan Brooks, the one that responded to the criticism positively when Coach K said it to him, if you get that version of Dylan Brooks, this could be a great deal. I know you have all the memes like, "Oh my God, he scored like 2 points," after being a LeBron stopper, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But if the guy can buy into his role and only be a defensive specialist, um, he really can't shoot the free ball. He's not really not a great scorer overall. But if he just buys in, he passes, rebounds, hustles, scores the ball when he's going towards the rim. I think it'll be a good deal.
Right. I think that's another one where you're gonna have to wait and see what happens because you're right. Dylan Brooks had a really bad end of the season last year, especially how what happened during the playoffs against the Lakers, where people he said that people aren't afraid of LeBron, and then the Lakers proceed to just absolutely
Annihilate him.
annihilate Memphis in that series to the point where I think it didn't even seem like it was a even contest throughout these most of those games. It seemed like the Lakers were blowing them out at every game. So for Houston, they get Brooks on a 4-year contract for $86 million in total. He still gets a big payday, considering a lot of people were, making those memes that he was going to go play in Japan or whatever, not be in the NBA this season. He gets a big time contract from Houston. So the Rockets spending a lot of money this offseason, and we knew that was going to happen going into this free agency. The biggest two signings were Van Vliet and Dylan Brooks. So I'll interested to see if that will help them make the postseason this year because if they can, it will look really good on Ime Udoka's resume if he could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple more. This, I guess, rapid fire here before we get to the next one. Max Strus going to Cleveland,
Yep,
$62 million. Originally an undrafted free agent from out of DePaul, and before that,
disgusting.
yeah, Division 2 player. So Division 2 player really getting $62 million is huge. Getting paid more than Austin Reeves, who gets 4 years, 54 mil to stay with the Lakers. Herb Jones getting the same deal to stay with the Pelicans. Ricky Hachimura getting 51 mil over 3 years to stay with the Bucks. Brooke Lopez
The
going. I'm
Lakers.
sorry, the Lakers.
I know you're going ahead.
I'm going ahead. Brooke Lopez getting $24 million, which I think is huge, huge
It's a,
overpay.
but I think it's a big sign because you look at Lopez's season last year. He was up for Defensive Player of the Year award, and I think it's another thing where Milwaukee uh, they're kind of in this situation where we're trying to keep that championship window open, kind of like how Golden State is. And you give Middleton that deal, you give Lopez that deal. They still think they can win a championship in the next 2 or 3
Oh,
years.
I agree
So
with you.
you have to do what you can to try to keep that window open because if not, you're going to get to the point where you're going to have to. You don't want to rebuild with Giannis still on your team because that God knows what will Giannis do in the next couple of years if he will want to leave Milwaukee. So
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it had to
I
be
hear you.
done.
I hear you. So yeah, you got to pay the man. You also get his brother Robin Lopez. I think he's coming over on a 1 year deal for $3 million. So you get the Lopez twins reunited for I think the first time since
They
they
did
were
the
at
first.
Stanford. But
They did the first time. Yep. Yep.
so you can fact check me on that. And a couple more before we go into the last two or last couple significant ones. D'Angelo Russell getting 18 mil per year to go back to the Lakers. Matisse Thybulle was going to be a Dallas Maverick, but Portland matched their offer sheet at 3 years, 33 million. Gabe Vincent going to be a Laker, so leaving the Heat to go to
I think that's a
to go
big
to the
sign
Los
for LA.
Angeles, which is a
I
really really big signing because they desperately needed a backup point guard
it's
slash bench.
as much as I don't like Gabe Vincent considering what he did to the Knicks, I think that's a great signing for the Lakers. I think that will really help them because I think one of their issues was they needed bench last season and they needed scoring off the bench. They weren't getting it from most of their players besides maybe Reeves, and then they had to put Reeves in the starting lineup. So I think getting a guy like Gabe Vincent, who was a proven commodity after what he did in the postseason, to come off the bench and give you points, I think that will really help the Lakers. I think they had a really good free agency in total. You talked about Hachimura coming back, Reeves is going back, Gabe Vincent's going there. I think the Lakers have had one of the better off seasons
Oh,
that
by
in
far, they
all.
had one of the best off seasons in sports so
I
far.
forgot about Jackson Hayes. I think that's also they also got Jackson Hayes and Cam Reddish. Those are
Well,
two.
Cam Reddish ain't nothing special. We kind of know about that.
Not saying he's going to be big time for them. Saying that you get two young guys that are still looking
They
to
got
make an
Torian Prince
impact.
too.
Right, they're still relatively young to the point where who knows? Maybe the Lakers find something in them and get them back to what they were supposed to be.
I
I
hear
don't.
you.
I don't know if it will happen. Probably won't. But only time can tell. You're learning under LeBron. I think
Okay.
anything's possible.
Okay, and this kind of summarize a couple more big signings, or significant signings, but not big enough for us to talk about them. Uh, Jeff Green leaving the Nuggets to go to Houston. Uh,
Yeah, he
Another
got his
big,
ring.
yeah, got his ring. Finally got his ring. Kind of went searching. Uh, this is to me is one of the shockers. Miles Bridges being back in the league. Hornets giving him an 8 year. I'm sorry, an $8 million prove it deal. Pretty much giving him the
Yeah, the
MLE as an
qualifying.
RFE.
Yep,
So that's going to be something. Derrick Rose leaving my New York Knicks, go back home to Memphis, or back to his college home, I should say, in Memphis. Westbrook
that's a
is
fun
going to remain
storyline.
a Clipper for the next 2 years.
Yep,
Uh, this is a big one for Phoenix. Eric Gordon going to the Suns.
I love that signing for them.
I like that signing a lot. $6.5 million. He's gonna be a six man to shoot off the bench. Really like that signing. Kind of significant. They kept a lot of other bench pieces like Damian Lee, and they kept Josh Okogie. They also got a
Got it.
couple more guys go that like Yuta Watanabe, which is a really good signing. They also got Keita Bates Diop and Drew Eubanks. So they're building a little bench, and it's not really filled with old men because all these guys are in their prime. The last couple I mentioned,
Right. Yeah,
but
no, I think Phoenix is, and also got they got Bol, remember too. They just signed him,
yeah.
so
So no, they have a bench. They have
they're
a
getting a
young
younger
bench.
bench. Exactly. I think that's what everyone was, they or at least their fans were hoping for, because going into the year we thought they'd been running out with NPCs and not running with any type of bench whatsoever. So
All
I
right,
think that's
and
a good move, and they got rid of Campaign's contract to do that and get Bol. So they were able to get some draft picks as well in order to get Bol and get Campaign off the board. So it's Bradley Beal's turn at point guard this season for Phoenix.
yeah, and Nick, I think I hit most of them on the head. I'm going to go into a couple of these into more detail, though. Starting with Seth Curry going to the Dallas Mavericks, they desperately need shooting,
I wanted him
and
so much on the Knicks.
I know, but he just wouldn't fit anywhere. And we got
I
a guy
know.
I think is going to be better in the long term for us, or way better in the long term,
I
because
hope, hopefully.
Seth Curry is 33 years old, so he's already on the wrong side of his prime right now. But I think that's going to help Dallas a lot. I like that signing. Um, Kind of solidifies. I don't know if he's going to start, but solidifies their bench unit.
Yeah,
And this is my favorite story: is 4 years, $12 million, $3 million per year. Julian Champagny, St. John's legend, New York
I knew
City
you were going to
born
go to that.
and raised. Listen, I think it's a great story. The guy
No, it
gets
is.
cut from the 76ers on Valentine's Day. That's rough. And then Greg Popovich signs him. And then right before, I don't know if you know this, Nick, but right before he was going to check back into the game, Popovich stopped him and said, listen, you're going to have a career in this league. You just got to find it and you got to show me. And after that happened, he just tore up the end of the season, averaging 15 points per game to end the last like 45 days of the season. Then he tore it up in summer league where he stole the show from Wembayana, and he got paid because of it. So I think that's a really great story.
Yeah. No, I've always liked Julian. He was really big for St. John, so I'm happy to see him get his payday.
All right, and I'll go on the next two right here. And this is, I think, is one of the biggest under the radar moves. Is Bruce Brown getting $22.5 million a year to go to the Indiana Pacers?
Big time
Leaving the Denver Nuggets
playoffs.
really helped them win a championship. Really
Yeah.
great in that game five, and that to me is a huge loss for Denver. I don't know how you could replace him.
Well, we talked about it. Denver's would have an issue with their bench because they would lose some people because of their money issues, and they lost Jeff Green, they lost Bruce Brown, so this was going to happen. It was kind of an inevitable. We didn't really see it happening. The only moves Denver really made in this offseason were bringing back some of their players. The only guy they I think of note that they got is new is Justin Holiday. So they've been relatively quiet, but you expected that because they didn't really have the money to bring back most of their guys. They would have liked to have brought back Bruce Brown, but you can't really bring him back when Indiana's giving him that much money. He's going to be a starter for them probably this season, if I had to guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's worthy of a starter too. He's going to do big things. And I know we mentioned, or I mentioned that we lost good old Derrick Rose going back to Memphis, but we got a guard to replace him. And oh man, I remember this dude torturing us when we'd go to St. John's games. I remember this dude so vividly. Every time he'd come in the Garden, it feels like he was Michael Jordan playing against the Celtics. Dante DiVincenzo, the big ragu, the Michael Jordan of Delaware, getting 4 years, $47 million for the New York Knicks, coming over him to the Golden State Warriors. I think this is a good signing, but I don't think it's a home run signing. I would give this signing like a B. I don't know how you would take it.
I I'm indifferent because, as you mentioned, I watched
I
this
have
guy too.
PTSD.
Exactly, I had PTSD from all the bad memories of Villanova coming into the Garden with Brunson and DiVincenzo, and they would just
Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart.
Bridges, yeah, and they would just kick our ass every time. And now DiVincenzo is a Nick, and he's going to pair up with Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson once again.
We do have that one moment, Val, where I think Jalen Brunson was on the team in 29, and I think it
Yeah, when
was
they went on the road.
2019. No.
Oh,
Our senior year when we came down, we were down like 29-11. We came back and won.
right.
That was a great movement. So I think that was my favorite time seeing those guys in the Garden. But
I thought you were talking about when they went on the road in
oh, that was
Villanova and
fantastic.
won. That's why I thought you were going with that.
No, but the one thing I want to stress with all these contracts is how large all these contracts are.
Right. I mean, that's the norm we're in the NBA. I mean, look at how about we didn't really talk about it much, but Paul Reed is another guy that got a nice pay from the Sixers. He got his offer match after he was going to originally sign with the Jazz. He got a nice payday too, and that's kind of like what you're leaning into with this topic, where we're in the NBA now, where the cap is going up and up, and it's giving these players more and more money. Guys, you wouldn't expect to get big time contracts like that. I mean, we talked about the Jeremy Grant deal. He got $160 million. You would probably not expect Jeremy Grant to get that anywhere near that type of money. He's a good player, but not $160 million good.
So this is where I'm going to take my victory lap, and I had to defend these contracts for multiple reasons. Every day,
Okay. I'm,
anytime
I'm gonna I'm gonna listen to it.
I would get garbage for it. Kyle Lowry, $29 million. Jordan Poole, 29 mil. DeMar DeRozan, 29 mil. Jaren Jackson, 27 mil. Tyler Hero, 27 mil. Jalen Brunson, 26 mil. Julius Randle, 25 mil.
Okay. All right.
They hold on, I'm not done.
No, no,
Then
no,
right
no.
below them, John Collins at 25 mil and Mike Conley at 25 mil. I had to hear so much garbage about how Julius Randle that was an overpay and this is a garbage contract and you're gonna regret this. Same thing with Jalen Brunson. I I I think it's not crazy to say that both Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are top 25 players in the NBA. Is that crazy enough to say that?
Uh,
You could say okay, they're fringe top 25. You could say they're top 30, whatever. You could say whatever you want, right? Is it too
sorry,
crazy to say that they're
I just saw my fantasy picture get blown up, so I'm kind of down bad right now. But yeah, I don't think it's crazy to say that. Brunson had a monster postseason, which definitely puts him in that conversation. I think Randall. I
well,
mean, Randall
Randle
had
was
it
he
was an
was
All
playing on a
Pro.
bad ankle.
Right, he was All
He's
NBA
literally got
again.
surgery.
He was All NBA again. And listen, I think if injury doesn't happen, who knows what he does in the postseason? Maybe he plays a little bit better. I feel like this could be a make or break year for Randall because there's been a lot of rumors with maybe the Knicks getting rid of him and going out against someone else. I don't know who that would be, but
But the point is that these contracts are the 47th and 48th most expensive in the NBA.
right.
Do you think Julius Randle at four is? Do you think they're appropriately paid at 47 and 48?
I think
I don't
if
think
you're
that. I don't think for a Knicks fan you're running circles, right? Oh
yeah,
my
you're
god,
happy about that.
but you could see him like, okay, if Michael Porter Jr. is getting $33 million, and if Gordon Hayward's getting 32,
I mean, you got to
and
keep in
DeAndre Ayton's
mind,
getting 32, you could say, okay, they're
right?
they're underpaid.
You
That's
got
what it is.
you got to keep in mind what happened with Brunson when the Knicks signed him. He was coming off a season where he was, yes, he had a great
And
postseason for
remember,
Dallas,
they
but he
said
was
this.
he was coming off the bench.
And
He
remember, the
wasn't starting.
media and fans said this was a massive overpay at
Yeah,
$26 million, and it's a declining contract too. So that means in 2025, it's going to be even less. By the time
right.
2025 hit, he's probably going to be not even top 60.
We like I said, the cap goes up every year, and these contracts, and when it comes down to money, they go up every year, and that's why you're seeing these salary caps the way that they are for most of these teams, and why they're in the negative so much, because they're having to overpay most of the time for these players to the point where they can't do anything else besides signing MLEs most of the time. So
I hear you.
I don't
So
know.
Nick, did I miss anything of out of these free agents, or did we kind of recap them all?
I think we pretty much hit the nail on the head with all the free agency. I think the only other moves realistically were some of the contract extensions for some key players like Anthony Edwards and
Yeah,
LaMelo Ball and stuff like
no, there's
that.
no movements though.
But there really wasn't any movement. There was like some trades that went down, but they were for lower tier players. I think the really biggest thing right now is just figuring out where James Harden and Damian Lillard go from here, because we're still
Yeah,
waiting to see where they get traded to.
yeah. James Harden. The relationship is severed in Philadelphia. I think he's pretty much said that there's no way he wants to be a Sixer. And to me, that's going to lead to a ripple effect of Joel Embiid getting traded. And Nick, you may or may not like this, but the number one odds to land him if Joel Embiid is
It's
not a
the Knicks.
Sixer, Nick's at 2-1.
No, I like
So
Embiid. I would take Embiid.
I'm indifferent on Embiid. Here's the thing. Like, we always preached youth for the last couple of years, and it's
I
finally paying
understand.
off. And it kind of just shrinks the window by so much, especially when RJ there's a 10-year age gap between Embiid and Barrett, or pretty much 10-year age gap. So to me, it kind of pushes up the window to that for
I
now.
understand. But what are the Knicks lacking right now?
I really
I'll tell you
it's so
exactly what it
tough
is. They
because I
don't
think
have a
Jalen Brunson
superstar.
Jalen Brunson can be that legit superstar. You saw it in the playoffs.
But I don't think he could be the number one on the team.
I think he can.
He
I
could be a
really have
co-star.
faith in him.
I'm not saying he can't be a co-star. All right, so let's say he beats a superstar. Don't you need a co-star to win a championship?
Yes, listen.
You need
I'm
a
still in the
co-star
camp.
most of the time.
I'm still in the camp. If Randall was healthy, we would have at least made the
You
finals.
can't tell me Randall and Brunson can win a championship. You can't tell me right now the Knicks constructed as they are a championship, like they have a chance.
No, because I think we're missing a couple of things on our
And
bench to
guess
make
what?
that happen.
I I don't think it's bench. I think you get Embiid. That's it. You have it right there.
It's also going to depend on what we give up for Embiid.
I think it would be something in the mix of like Mitch, and I think Mitch would have to be involved
Mitchell
because
Robinson would have to go.
there would be no spot for him. I wouldn't be surprised if Grimes is in the deal.
I won't be surprised about that either. And I think we get a
Obviously,
couple of first round picks,
yeah, I didn't at that point. Like, who cares about the first round
maybe
picks?
3 first round picks and 2 swaps or something like that.
At this rate, the norm now for most leagues is for mostly the NBA and the NFL. It's screw the picks. Go get the established talent. You don't know you could have a chance at a championship and it could work out. I think if you're able to do that, that's a home run. But the problem is, would Philly really trade him in conference or in
It's
division,
happened
however you want to put
before.
it?
They traded Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to Brooklyn, so it happens before. It's
Yeah,
not like the
Boston
first
did
time it
that, but
happened. Boston and
Boston,
Philadelphia also switched their first round picks.
I don't know. I would love to see
So
it
big
happen.
trades do happen.
I would love to see it happen. I really would not mind MB coming to the Knicks.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think I would mind it, but the price has to be right.
and I think there was the rumor for Harden being a Knick. I don't think it's going to happen at
I do
all.
not want that. I definitely don't.
I pretty much now see him going to the Clippers at this rate because I think the Clippers are in a spot where, listen, you have Leonard under contract, you have Paul George under contract, and their prime is starting to go down. You
No, their
need
prime is done. This is the last year. This is the last
so
dance for the Clippers.
if that's the case, then you got to get James Harden and try to win a
And
championship
I
this
will
year,
say Russell Westbrook looked really good in the Clippers in the postseason. He
right?
looked good.
And they got him on a nice deal. That's a relatively good team friendly deal for the
That's a
Clippers to
great
get him
deal.
back.
8 year. I mean, he just wants a ring at this point.
Right. And I think if you can get Harden, I think that would be perfect. I think that could help you in the West, especially because
if you get
Listen,
Harden, you assume 3 out of 4 of those guys stay healthy.
you
And I
gotta
think three
you
out of
gotta
those
hope
four
they
of
stay
those
healthy.
and 3 out of those 4 guys is enough to make the conference finals. I think the fourth one is enough to put you in the championship.
Um, I gotta see. I would like if they
If you
got.
have all four of those guys healthy, I think they're in the championship. I'm
I
not
was
saying
gonna
they're going to
ask,
win
do
it,
you
but I
think
think they're in the finals.
if they get Harden, are they the favorite in the West? They
They
have to be,
gotta stay
right?
healthy. Yeah, they have to. One, if they're healthy, of course, and this is what I stress before anything.
Right.
Yes, they on paper they
On
are the favorite,
paper.
but they have to stay healthy. Because I could say, oh yeah, they're the favorite no matter what. No, that's stupid. No, they gotta stay healthy, and that's something that they have struggled with mightily over the last couple of years.
Um, I don't know. I think if they get Harden, they got a good chance. But like you said, the window is pretty much one and done. If you can't get it done this year, it might never happen. And the Clippers, they're getting near the stage of where they might have to rebuild. So they need to try to win it now because
And Steve Ballmer is willing to pay for it.
I think they have. I would have to look at their roster and see what they can give up in terms of maybe talent wise, because they probably have the draft picks to do it. But then again, keep in mind they gave up a lot of picks in that Paul George trade, so some of the picks are with OKC. So that also could be a factor in any type of Harden deal to LA.
Yeah, that would be something. I don't know what they're going to give up, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I do want to talk about Dame over here. We'll talk about Dame Dollar and
Yeah.
his struggle right now.
Well, he made it clear that he wants to get traded, and he specifically wants to go to Miami. However, the cards are all in the hands of Portland right now, and they control his destiny and where he goes. So it might not necessarily be the Miami Heat where he gets traded to. Um, you could correct me if I'm wrong. Does he have a no trade clause in his deal?
No, but his agent's literally just telling people he's not going to show up.
So
So I think that's pretty much as good as a no trade clause.
it really creates a dilemma to the point where if you are a team like Portland, you want to get something out of the deal, but it seems like Miami is giving you a hard time also with this trade. And Miami, they're in a situation also like the Clippers, where their window is starting to fall, and they gotta try to win a championship the next year or two. And if you get Dame, that helps you a lot. But if you don't, then it's a complete failure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And to me, I think this is kind of babyish on Dame. If you really wanted to control your own destiny, you would have no trade clause in your contract. I know they're not common, but for a guy like Dame, if he really wanted to stay in Portland, or that's what he's been saying his entire time, dedicated to the grind, he wants to win one for Portland. He's not going to run away. He would have had a no trade clause. If he wanted to control his future. That's my opinion.
So, do you think he gets traded to Miami then at some point, or do we think it's just gonna, not happen at
That is,
all?
it's so tough. I'm not really positive. I don't know where he goes. I think he stays important because now, especially if Scoot Henderson's going to be down for extended period of time,
But will
and
he
if
show up? That's the problem.
see, that's what I hate this attitude of, oh, I'm just not going to show up. Like you signed the contract, you know, uh, they're
But
trying to.
he's
It's not
but
like they're
he
not
signed the
trying to
contract
build
hoping that the team would, help him compete. That's why he signed it. They haven't done that though.
yeah, but it's not like the team isn't trying to compete. They're clearly signing people
I
that they think they can help.
I
They're
guess, but again, you look. We just talked about the roster earlier. This team is at best what, sixth seed, maybe.
yeah, but that's how. Listen, he signed this contract knowing that's how it was going to be. It's not like they had anyone in the farm coming up. Now they had like any young, really good rookies. I mean, they had Simons. That's about it. I mean, they have pieces, they have players, but when you handicap a team like this by taking on a contract like that, sometimes you got to look in the mirror. And a lot of superstars or so-called superstars don't like it, but that's the fact of the matter. As much as I don't like it, the big three in Miami, they took pay cuts. They took pay cuts to get other guys to help them win. Melo on the Knicks, no pay cut. Dame, no pay cut. They didn't win. As much as you can say about the big three in Miami, they wanted to sign other guys. They took pay cuts. So to me, if Dame is going to sign a contract like that and then just be complaining that they can't find anyone when he's taking up 40 to 45% of the salary cap, well, no shit, you're not going to win because half the fucking salary is going towards you.
It's like I said it earlier. I think Portland is in a weird spot overall with their team, and now with this situation going down, I think there has to be a resolution soon to this problem because if not, it's just going to be a media nightmare for the Trailblazers all season. So
Yeah, you don't want an
I
AD
don't know.
situation like you had with the Pelicans. That was a media nightmare all year long, and you don't want to do that. But hey, listen, there's a small market team. They got to keep what they got. They need to get the best return as possible. And if Miami already has that upper hand, it's just gonna make their return more pitiful. So I don't blame him.
Right. So I think there's still a couple months before the season starts. I think there's still time for Portland to figure this out. And the same goes for Philadelphia with Harden. These two teams have to try to figure something out, whether it's convincing the player to play for them this season, whether it's getting a trade done. Something's got to go down the next couple months before the NBA season starts. Otherwise, like I mentioned, it's going to be a media nightmare all year for those two teams. Portland and Philly could be in for a long year overall, and it could create a headache for those two teams. So they got to figure something out.
And I'm sure they will.
Before we wrap up today, though, Andrew, um, quickly want to get your thoughts about who you think overall, based on what we've seen so far, who's had the best free agency in general.
I think you said it earlier. I think it's the Lakers. As much as I hate the Lakers and LeBron, they really solidified their team. They got the pieces that they need to win. They got a lot of guys with grit, like Rui Hachimura and Gabe Vincent, and they also got the guys that had a good reunion when they first joined, like D'Angelo Russell, but didn't really pan out in the playoffs for a number of reasons. And they kept a lot of their core too, and they lost some guys like Dennis Schroeder, which I think is addition by subtraction, especially when you add a guy like Gabe Vincent. That is a massive upgrade at a premium position. So I would say the Lakers are having one of the best off seasons so far.
Yeah, I can't really disagree with that. I mean, I talked about it. The Lakers are helping not only their starting lineup, but helping that bench get better and try to keep them in that window that they have currently to try to win another championship. So those moves are definitely big. I'll try not to piggyback off of you and take the same team.
I have another team in mind. I think we're going to go on the same wavelength here. Do you want me to say it or do you want to
You
say
could
it?
say because I'm curious where you're going with it.
Is it the Phoenix Suns?
I was gonna say Phoenix actually, yeah.
All right, so you can go take Phoenix then.
Um,
That'd be my number two.
and I was gonna talk about how mostly they got some good, low tier contracts from this free agency, but also keep in mind they got Bradley Beal this offseason. So you have to tie into what everything they've done in the offseason since the season has ended. Getting Bradley Beal is big overall for their offense. I'm curious to see how it'll be a point guard this season because we haven't really seen it that much from him, but maybe the Suns can make it work out. Who knows? But you look at what they've done in free agency as well. They got Bol, Chimezi Metu they also got. We mentioned that they got Keita Bates-Diop, Yuta Watanabe, Drew Eubanks, Damian Lee is brought back, Okogie is brought back. They were able to make some big moves as well, getting Eric Gordon. The biggest problem for Phoenix in this offseason was who was on the bench and how can they compete after the starting five goes off the court. This is how you do it. You get guys that have been proven that they can do stuff off the bench and keep you in these games. Because once a guy goes down, whether it's because he needs rest or it's because of an injury, someone's got to, fill that hole. And it could be one of these players. And I think they're nice, solid players, especially Eric Gordon. I think that was the best move they made. Because I think it's a guy that has been a proven commodity off the bench, has won Sixth Man of the Year before in the NBA multiple times. He could win it again this season if Phoenix has a really good year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think uh, the problem with Phoenix was they had four guys that were playable about a month ago. Now I think they have 8 to 9 guys that are playable
Right.
in the playoffs. So to just double your rotation like that is
That's what
phenomenal.
look at what Denver did in the postseason. They were running with a rotation of 7 to 8 players most of the time.
Yeah, and you saw Denver getting gas. So for Phoenix, if they truly have 9 guys that are playable, then I think they're in really good shape. They might be the favorites in the West.
It's possible. I mean, we know that going into the season, the West is going to be another dogfight to try to get to the NBA Finals because there's just so much
Top
camaraderie
tier
and where
talent.
right there's a point to where there's a lot of good teams and you could make a case for a bunch of teams making the finals next season. But with trades like Harden and Lillard still on the board, it could create more possibilities in the West and even in the East for things to go down going into this upcoming NBA season. But once we get towards the beginning of the NBA season and we preview it as to what happens, and maybe in the next couple of weeks we find out what happens with Harden and Lillard, then we'll kind of get an understanding of what we might think is, or who I should say, who are going to be the teams that are going to be favored going into this NBA season and can get closer to an NBA championship.
So
But
Nick,
yeah,
one thing before we do sign off here, I do want to point out that Chris Paul is on the Golden State Warriors, and
correct.
we really didn't go over this a lot, but I think it goes without note that them adding Chris Paul and getting rid of Jordan Poole. No, we went over Jordan Poole leaving, but we didn't talk about the addition of Chris Paul.
Well, we did a couple weeks ago, but
Yeah, but I just want to touch upon
you
it
could go
again for the
ahead.
viewers
Yeah,
that could have lost it.
yeah.
Um, do you think now that we have a lot of these trades finalized, you have a couple teams in front of you in the West? You have Denver, the reigning champions. You have the Clippers with all their nonsense going on right now, with all their injuries. You have Phoenix, and you got Golden. So you got Golden State, you got Phoenix, you got the Clippers, and you got Denver. So out of those four, who do you think is going to reign supreme? Because if I told you, hey,
I
that's going
would
to be the semis this year, I
go
don't think I
ahead.
could pick one. I don't think I could pick a
I
two.
would. I'm not gonna lie with you. I think the Lakers deserve some consideration in there too with the free agency they've had.
I would say they're a dark horse. And by dark
Um,
horse, I mean they're right. I'm not on the outside looking in, but they're kind of like walking up to the party, if that makes sense.
and I'm not sold on the Clippers unless they get James Harden. I
Right, right, right,
they
right. I'm assuming they get James Harden.
right.
That's my
If they get
assumption.
James Harden, then you might convince me otherwise.
Yeah, my assumption is they get James Harden. If they don't have James Harden, then you obviously swap Lakers for Clippers.
Now, as if I had to pick one right now for the West, I might lean towards Phoenix. I'm not gonna lie with you.
I
I,
might too after all these additions. They
I
look pretty good.
the free agency moves have been great, and Denver I still like as a contender. I'm worried that Bruce Brown is going to be more significant than a lot of people would assume so because it
Would
might be
believe. Yeah, I agree with
yeah,
you.
not a lot of people would believe that's going to be a big move. I think that could be huge for Denver's loss in this season. But it's really tough to go back to back. That's another thing too. And you've seen it the last couple of seasons, it's been tough other than Golden State doing it that many times. I think for Denver, they just got to figure out if they can find a diamond in the rough. And if they can, then they can get back there. I just think with the moves that Phoenix has made so far and with the guys they already have there, I think it's crazy not to pick them right now as the favorite in the Western Conference.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And I don't think we could pick someone in the East right now because that's just wide open too. We
Uh,
have no idea what's going to happen. I'm
I
not
think
even going to attempt to.
I was gonna say I think it's a two-team race right now between Boston and Milwaukee.
I still think it is too. I think Miami got lucky, and I think the Knicks will kind of fall short once again. Maybe go to 7 games this time
Like
in the second round.
Cleveland will be a good team this year again.
I'm not even gonna count Cleveland. If they're
I'm not
to
saying they're
me
gonna be a
that to
contender.
me
I'm
they're a tier
saying
below the Knicks, and if I'm not considering the Knicks to be contending, then I'm not going to consider Cleveland.
yeah, I'm not saying they're gonna be contending. I'm just saying Cleveland will be in the
They will
mix
fight for the
for.
5 seed.
I don't know. I think they could be a three or I think they'll be in the 3 to 5 range. That's because I think
It
you're
also
gonna.
depends on what happens with Philly too.
That's what I'm saying. I think Philly's going to be in a weird spot if they trade Harden. What do they get in the deal, and what will the roster look like next season? Because if that's the case, I'm not sure how they'll make the playoffs, sure, but I don't know what the team would look like and how they'll do without Harden. And I think that's going to be something to point out because Harden is a big reason why they were the 3 seed last year and were 1 win away from going on to the conference finals.
Yeah, to me, I think it's Milwaukee if they can stay healthy because until Joe Mazzulla stops watching the talent on repeat, I don't think they're going to make
I
the
was going to say,
final.
if I had to pick someone of these, I think it'd be Milwaukee. I know they have a new head coach, but I can't trust Missoula after what he did in the postseason last year for Boston. And I think getting back Lopez and Middleton was big for Milwaukee just to stay alive in that, in that window that they currently have. But if you're a Celtics fan, you're kind of in the same boat where you got to win something soon because this could be a disaster if they don't win it. They have so much talent on their roster, and you got Kristaps Porzingis now added. You got to try to win a championship soon because if not, changes are going to be made relatively soon.
I agree with you.
But I think pretty much that wraps up this week's edition of the All Gas No Break short sports show. A little bit of a tongue twister there, but great NBA free agency overall. A lot of moves have been made. Still waiting on the decisions of James Harden and Damian Lillard and to see where they go in this upcoming weeks and months, or if they go anywhere. We'll have to find out as we get a little bit closer to this year's NBA season. But Andrew, before we forget, we almost did. I think you wanted to quickly mention a show that we're going to be doing in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, so I'm going to stop the outro music and plug the Morris County Card Show, which we will be there as vendors on August 5th. That's a Saturday. That's going to be in Parsippany, New Jersey. It's the Morris County Card Show between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. Hey, we have a lot of people that just stop by. They want to chat, talk about sports cards, talk about anything. We've seen a lot of good stories. I think my personal favorite is the when we saw the guy got a custom piece done. He had a photo at the time of all the home run leaders,
Yep.
and he got every single one of them to sign up, same exact position. So I think you see stuff like that at the show. I think that's just worth the price of admission alone, which I think is like $1 or two. So if you're in the New York City area or the tri-state area, come say hi on Saturday, August 5th.
And if you want to hear me ranting about the Yankees, because more than likely they will be in a bad spot by that show, definitely stop by and listen to me rant about them, because it will be a fun time to say the least. But that is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I have been Nicholas Momoto, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. Have a great rest of your weekend.